So let's take a look at how you can use the Desmos Matrix Calculator when I'm trying to perform row operations on a matrices. So if you don't have a TI-84 or a graphing calculator that has a matrix function in it, then this is an alternative. And it's not quite as straightforward as the TIs, but this is how you can work around it. So this is the operation and the matrices over here on the left that I want to perform the row operations on. So notice that we're being asked to take -6 times the first row of this matrices and add it to row 3 of that matrix. And then I'm also going to take -7 times the first row and add it to the fourth row. In order to do this in Desmos, we need to make three separate matrices for each of the rows we're performing the operations on. So I'm going to say that the first row in our matrix is going to be equal to, and we're going to create a matrix that we call A for the first row of this matrix here on the left of the screen. So I need to reduce the number of rows and increase the columns to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, wrong one. So we'll increase the columns. And this is going to have 1, -1, 1, -1, and 2. So this row here for matrix A is the same as our first row in the matrix we're looking at. Now let's make another matrix of that same size and 5 columns. We're going to let matrix B here in Desmos represent the third row of our matrix over here. So I have a 6, 0, 7, 3, 9. And then finally, we'll make a new matrix C with 1 row, 5 columns to represent the fourth row over here of my matrix, which is 7, 2, 3, -8, and 9. So each of these matrices here in Desmos represents a individual row in the matrix I'm trying to perform the operations on. So the first operation here says I'm going to take -6 times the first row and add it to the third row. So here I'm going to take -6 times the first matrix and add it to the second matrix, which is B. And I have a new row here of 0, 6, 1, -9, and -3. I can do that again, taking -7 times my first row, which is A, and adding it to row C. And I end up with this new row for that here. So how do I enter that into my Pearson? So row 1 never changed. So I'm going to repeat row 1 from my original matrix here. Row 2 doesn't change. -4, -9, and 0. Row 3 became this information here in Desmos. Row 3 became what I was performing this operation on. So that new row becomes 0, 6, 1, 9, -3. And the fourth row becomes what I performed over here. So I would have 0, 9, -4, -1, -5. I can check my answer, and I got it right. So to perform individual matrix operations in Desmos, using the Desmos calculator, the Desmos Matrix Calculator, I have to assign a separate matrix for each of the rows I want to perform the operations on. So in this particular case over here, because I was performing a row operation to row 1 and row 3, as well as row 1 and row 4, I created a matrix for row 1 out of matrix A. I created a matrix for row 3 out of matrix B, and I created a matrix for row 4 out of matrix C. And then I performed the operations on those there. Now you'll notice that at the end down here, if I have a, if I wanted to perform the augmented, or if I wanted to perform the row reduced echelon form, if I want to know the solution to a matrix, I can do that as well. So what does that look like here? Here I have an example of where I want to take a systems of equations and I want to solve it using a matrix. So over on the left hand side over here is the system that I want to solve. So I have a matrix that's going to be consistent of 3 rows as well as an X, Y, Z, and an answer, so 4 columns. So let's make a new matrix that has 3 rows as well as 4 columns. And remember, all we're doing here is creating that augmented matrix, starting with my first column representing the coefficients of the x's. The second column is the coefficient of the y's. The third column is the coefficient of the z's, and then the answer. So my first row looks like this, 1, 3, 0, 0, if we're looking over here to the equation. The second row is going to be 1, 4, 1, 1. The third row is -3, -1, -1, -46. So there is my matrix. Once I hit enter, my matrix is now in Desmos, and I want to perform an operation on the matrix. I would do that by simply saying row reduced echelon form of matrix A that I defined above, and here is the row reduced echelon form. So remember that the answers are all coming in the last column over here. So we have an X value at 15, a Y value at -5, and a Z value at 6. So we would have 15, -5, and 6. And that would be correct. Now, what if I want to perform other operations? I don't want to use the matrix that, to find its row reduced echelon form, but I want to start performing operations on this matrix, on these matrices. Just like we did in the videos that I showed you before using my graphing calculator, I can do similar process here in Desmos Matrix Calculator. So notice on the left-hand side of your screen up here, I have a matrix defined as A and a matrix defined as B. I have those exact same matrices shown over here in my calculator. Remember from the video, if I wanted to solve the equation 3x plus A is equal to B, so I was solving an equation for the values of x using matrix operations, then I went through this process here where I first subtracted A from both sides, and then I divided both sides by 3, or in essence, multiplied everything by 1/3. Remember that subtraction is not commutative, so order matters with this. So here, when I was solving this equation, I'm going to take 1/3 times matrix B minus matrix A, and that was what I entered into my graphing calculator over here on the left. Notice that I can do the same thing here in my Desmos Matrix Calculator. I have my matrices A and B, and then when I perform this operation of 1/3 times matrix B minus matrix A, the result is showing up here. This is the same solution here in the calculator for Desmos that you see over here in the calculator, or the screenshot that I took of my calculator from the graphing calculator. I have both a decimal value. I can click this button right here and change it to a fractional answer, which is the same thing you see circled over here in blue. So you can perform the same operations that you can in your graphing calculator using the Desmos Matrix Calculator. You just had to be aware of what would we do when we're doing our individual matrices, which I showed you at the beginning of this video. So hopefully that'll help.